AITA for hiding my husband's Viagra after his sex every night ultimatum destroyed our marriage? I never imagined I'd become the wife who secretly grinds her husband's Viagra into his morning coffee. But when Mark presented me with his 30-day sex challenge to save our dying marriage, desperate times called for desperate measures. What began as my silent rebellion uncovered truths so dark, they would make you question everything you know about love and betrayal. The crisp white envelope sat between us like a bomb waiting to detonate. It was our 10th wedding anniversary, but instead of the romantic getaway I dreamed of, my husband Mark handed me a printed marriage revitalization plan over cold pancakes. "I've been researching," he announced, his eyes sparkling with an excitement that made my stomach churn. "Couples who commit to daily intimacy for 30 days report significantly higher marital satisfaction. It's scientifically proven." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline that never came. "You can't be serious, Mark. This isn't some corporate merger. This is our marriage." "Dead serious," he said, tapping the envelope. "Page 3 outlines our nightly schedule. We start at 9 p.m. sharp tonight." My hands trembled as I scanned the document. Scheduled intimacy slots, performance tracking, even a rating system. The man I'd loved for a decade had reduced our most intimate moments to a business transaction. "Mark, this isn't romantic, it's degrading. I'm your wife, not a project you need to manage. Necessary measures for necessary times," he snapped, his patience thinning. 3 months, Sarah. 3 months since we've been intimate. Do you even find me attractive anymore? The real answer was complicated, tangled in grief, trauma, and a secret I'd carried since finding my mother's body after her suicide. But all I managed was a week. That's not fair. Fair. He laughed bitterly. You freezing me out for months isn't fair either. So here's the deal, we follow the plan, or we start discussing separation. That night I lay beside his sleeping form, tears tracing silent paths down my cheeks. This stranger in my bed wasn't the man who'd written me love letters, who'd held me through panic attacks, who'd promised to cherish me. The pressure, the demands, the clinical approach to intimacy, it felt like emotional torture disguised as salvation. On day 4 of what I privately dubbed the intimacy prison, I made a discovery that changed everything. While searching for painkillers in Mark's side of the bathroom cabinet, my fingers brushed against a small, cold bottle hidden behind his allergy medication. Viagra. My breath caught in my throat. He'd never needed pharmaceutical help before. Was this ultimatum really about saving our marriage, or propping up his own crumbling masculinity? Confronting him would mean another exhausting argument, another lecture about meeting his needs. So I did the unthinkable. I shook one little blue pill into my palm, carried it to the kitchen, and crushed it into fine powder using the back of a spoon. My hand shook as I mixed it into his morning protein shake. The guilt was immediate and overwhelming, a bitter taste in my mouth that had nothing to do with the protein powder. But when he texted me that evening, exhausted from work, "Let's skip tonight and resume tomorrow," the relief washed over me in such powerful waves that I had to sit down. I'd bought myself one more night of freedom from his scheduled advances. Over the next 2 weeks, I became an expert in pharmaceutical sabotage. Some days I'd replace his pills with aspirin tablets I'd carefully shaped to resemble Viagra. Other times I'd accidentally misplace his prescription. Each small deception granted me another evening where my body remained my own. Another night where I didn't have to perform like a trained animal. But the lies began eating me from the inside. I started having nightmares about being discovered, Mark finding my secret stash of crushed pills, his face contorted in betrayal. I'd wake up gasping, my heart pounding, convinced the jig was up. The worst part? I began to see myself as the villain in our story. What kind of wife resorts to tampering with her husband's medication? What kind of person was I becoming? Day 18 brought a new revelation, one I couldn't crush or hide. The moment Mark walked through the door after work, I smelled it. Jasmine. Sweet, floral, and utterly foreign in our home. I'd stopped wearing perfume months ago, since the depression had swallowed me whole after my mother's death. The various bottles sat gathering dust on my vanity, memorials to a happier version of myself. New cologne? I asked, trying to keep my voice light as I hugged him. He pulled away too quickly, avoiding my eyes. The office installed new air fresheners. Smells like a cheap hotel, doesn't it? But it wasn't air freshener. It was the same distinct jasmine perfume my friend Rachel always wore. The same Rachel who'd been working late with Mark 3 times this week. That night, while Mark snored beside me, I did something I'd never done in 10 years of marriage. I went through his phone. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scanned his messages with Rachel. The texts were professional on the surface, but there were suspicious gaps, entire conversations deleted. I found photos from a recent team dinner where they stood closer than colleagues should, her hand resting on his arm a beat too long. Most damning was a heart emoji she'd sent that he hadn't responded to, but hadn't deleted either. Was the sex challenge his twisted way of dealing with affair guilt? Or was I becoming paranoid, seeing ghosts in every shadow? The weight of my deception and suspicions became too heavy to carry alone. I started seeing Dr. Evans, a therapist specializing in marital issues and trauma. What your husband is doing constitutes emotional abuse, she said gently during our 3rd session. An intimacy ultimatum is a form of coercion. However, she added, her gaze turning serious, tampering with someone's medication is also legally and ethically problematic. I know, I whispered, the words tasting like shame. But I'm trapped in an impossible situation. If I refuse intimacy, he threatens divorce. If I comply, I feel violated. If I confront him about the possible affair, he'll deny everything and turn it back on me. Have you considered that his behavior might be stemming from something deeper than infidelity? Dr. Evans asked. Sometimes what looks like cheating is actually a symptom of a different wound. The real wound, the one I hadn't shared with anyone, was the trauma of finding my mother after her suicide 6 months ago. The image of her lifeless body, the note she'd left, the way death had stolen all desire from me. These were the ghosts haunting our marriage. Mark knew about her death, but not the gruesome details of how I'd found her. Not the memories that visited me in nightmares, stealing my capacity for intimacy. The house of cards I'd built came crashing down on day 29. Mark, looking for his favorite cufflinks for an important meeting, discovered the Ziploc bag of crushed blue pills hidden in my jewelry box. He stormed into the living room, his face purple with rage, holding the evidence like a prosecutor presenting Exhibit A. "You've been poisoning me?" he screamed, the veins in his neck bulging. I was protecting myself. I screamed back, all the fear and anger of the past month exploding out of me. "You turned our marriage into a brothel with your spreadsheets and your blue pills and your jasmine-scented mistress." The words hung between us, sharp and deadly in the silence that followed. "Mistress?" he whispered, all the anger draining from his face, replaced by something that looked like shock. "You think I'm having an affair?" The perfume, Mark. The late nights with Rachel. The deleted texts. Don't insult my intelligence. He sank onto the sofa, his head dropping into his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were filled with tears I hadn't seen since his father's funeral. "Rachel's my addiction sponsor," he said, his voice breaking. "I've been attending NA meetings for 2 months. The Viagra was so I could perform while getting clean from the painkillers I've been addicted to since my back surgery. The jasmine scent is from the meeting hall. They burn scented candles to cover the smell of coffee." The world tilted on its axis. Every assumption I'd made, every conclusion I'd drawn, every deceptive act I'd committed, all built on a foundation of misunderstanding. "The ultimatum," he continued, tears streaming down his face now. "It was my sick way of proving I was still the man you married. That the addiction hadn't stolen everything from me. From us. We sat in the wreckage of our marriage, 2 broken people who'd been hurting each other to mask their own pain. Him with his secret addiction, me with my hidden trauma, both too ashamed and scared to be vulnerable with each other. We're in real couples therapy now, the kind that doesn't involve spreadsheets or ultimatums. I finally told him about finding my mother, about the trauma that had stolen my desire for intimacy. He confessed about the painkiller addiction that started after his spinal surgery, the shame that kept him silent, the fear of losing me that drove him to create that horrible plan. The road to healing is paved with difficult conversations and raw honesty. We're learning to be vulnerable instead of defensive, to listen instead of react, to support instead of demand. So I ask you, AITA, for hiding his Viagra when I believed he was using it to pressure me into unwanted intimacy? Or was I simply a traumatized woman trying to survive in a marriage that felt like a prison?
The story ends here, but our journey doesn't have to. If you want to join me for the next tale, please subscribe and ring that bell. Your support means everything. Thanks for watching.